September the 29th. All day. I'm here somewhere. There it goes. I think we're good to go this time. Excellent connection. My apologies. Not that that's necessary, I'm sure, but it is what it is. Here we go, rocking Mr. Roll. Can we confirm that I got a high quality stream this time before I shoot? We got 6 people on the stream. That works. Good stuff. Thanks, James. I'm not going to bore you with how nutty the day today was. 720p. I'm going to have to do a few practice streams maybe on Saturday, just so I can check the quality, make sure I got the right numbers. It's complicated. So it's okay. Let's get after it. I'm happy. So we got a poll tonight. We got bad news, as if it never stops around here. Might as well cover that. Well, let's cover the poll first, because should nuclear power plants surrounded by farms be closed? And we got a resounding yes. Gotta slow that down a little bit. Ooh, we should have graphics back here. Let me try that, graphics. Oh, we got no Geiger counter. It's 299 counts per minute over in the corner. Oh, God. Graphics. Let me reset that. Yeah, there we go. We should get graphics here. Yes. Yes, what? Yes, we got graphics. Yeehaw! This is a Nuclear Scumbag show. You can't possibly imagine how exciting it is to see that back. Especially for a crazy like me. Oh, yeah. And just let me slow it down. Maybe a bit more. There we go. Alrighty, so let's get after it. Whew. Feels like madness. So the boat broke down yesterday. It rained so hard when I went out to try to figure it out. I was like, it'd be okay, right? A little bit of rain. It rained so hard that I bolted for my back door, which is, 30 feet or something? I had to take my clothes off before I can get in the house, and it probably weighed 15 pounds. That's not rain. I don't know what that was, but the rain doesn't. I've never seen rain do something like that before. So we got a poll. That's self-explanatory. Yeah, we can put the phone number up now, I think, can we? That's a good point. Yeah, there she rolls. 709-589-4406. You can't possibly imagine how gratifying it is just to see that. Yeah, it's been a hell of a day. Ukraine will not be swayed by Russia's nuclear... Well, you mean NATO will not be swayed. Bless Ukraine, bless their hearts for fighting the war for NATO. They're not getting paid. Pretty sweet deal for NATO. Countries, there's 30 NATO. What the hell is a NATO? It's a new word. I'm kind of proud of it. Just came up with it. Monday, getting a patent on it. Nuclear fusion reactor for 30 seconds. Let's start off with the crazy stuff. Requires temperature of 100 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures. This is 180,000 degrees Fahrenheit, rather. It's 1,000,000 degrees Celsius. It's 180 million degrees Fahrenheit. So they got to keep it suspended with magnets. Now they got to figure out how to boil water. And the studies we looked at over the years, we cover them live, right? We don't just cover like a study. We cover. I got a Chernobyl video on my site with 900 studies. Just to show you the documentation exists. It's pointless for them to suggest you don't know anything about it. That didn't stop them, apparently. So in 2019, it was 20 seconds rather than 2020. 30 seconds in 2022. Okay, so this is, we covered this all the time, right? If it shows up in search engine, we covers it. And so originally, last year, they celebrated, they said they got more power back than they put in. Now they put in 180 million degrees Fahrenheit temperature. And so they used all this energy to create that. You can imagine it's enough to power a small city. Not kidding you, it's enough to power, like a city, not a town, but a city. And they figured they got enough extra energy to power not another city, but a 9-volt battery. Like, in your smoke detector. Okay, so that's pretty crazy, right? So this year, they got enough power to boil 60 liters of water. The question they didn't answer was how many liters of water can you boil in 30 seconds at 180 million degrees Fahrenheit? And then how did you figure out you can boil an extra 60 liters, 60 jugs of water? I doubled Durham to come up with the. So this is obviously a total misrepresentation. To put it on a pedestal, something that won't exist for another 50 years. Rather than come up with solutions, they're going to put all their time and energy and monetary and tens of thousands of the sharpest, brightest inbreeds to figure out a problem they know they can't solve in this generation or next generation. Rather, nothing. You'll spend nothing on storage. And every time the storage word comes up for renewables, all they talk about is batteries for some reason. Bruce Power got $4 billion last year for storage, which was meant for the renewable industry. But if the renewable industry shows they can round-the-clock cycles, then goodbye nuclear, right? So Bruce Power took $4 billion, all of it, and they're going to have pumped hydro. Because if renewable gets pumped hydro, nobody will want nuclear power again, right? And tell me that's not evil. Can you imagine how many companies could have had storage with $4 billion in Canada? Well, the real answer is none, because the nuclear industry runs Canada, which is... now, so this story is about Africa. This is a decrepit nuclear plant, the Koeberg plant, with multiple earthquakes in the last couple of years. Turns out it's on a fault line. It's past its lifespan. It's brittle from the neutron bombardment and other emitters. And cement for the containment was inferior when they done it. And we covered lots of stories how South Korea and Japan produced for 25 years defective parts for nuclear power plants. And we're talking about the major parts, the biggest stress parts on top of that. To rejuvenate an aging nuclear power station, Canada announced today Pickering is going to be rejuvenated. It's supposed to be closed down in 2024. The EDF just announced 2 plants in the United Kingdom are going to be extended. The list goes on. The nuclear industry is absolute desperation mode. And that ain't going to save them. This is a no trespass sign. Buddy got his... he's set up there alongside these disease factories. Campaigners warn EU sanctions failures is fooling Russia's genocidal nuclear threats and demand full fossil fuel embargo right now. So these campaigners are promoting nuclear, obviously, in the sideline. But by demanding, first off, Russia had an embargo from United Nations and NATO countries, which is over 200 countries. And all 200 countries are suffering brutal inflation. And when they announced that in February, I actually came out with a video and said, hey, that's inflation in overdrive, folks. Go fill up your cars right now and your oil tanks. And if you didn't, the next day you paid a lot more. And within a week, you were paying up to 3 to 4 times more. They went up. It was a staged event, but the World Economic Forum set all of that up. Campaigners and NATO is not even supposed to exist, right? They were set up in response to the Soviet Union when they dissolved, because Gorbachev was too stupid to get out of the way, let somebody else solve the issues in the country. Got rid of everybody's pensions in their countries. These campaigners, leading Ukrainian and international campaigners, written the European Council, immediate embargo on all Russia fossil fuels, which is basically what happened in February, right, with over 200 countries. And now inflation only hurts the most impoverished in those countries. They punished everybody on the planet. This is NATO and the United Nations done this to us. And the military-industrial complex, and of course, which is United Nations, 195 militaries. They got nothing to gain from a war, do they? Leading Ukrainian international campaigners, where are they to? Genocidal, fossil fuel, nuclear is a genocidal, omnicidal. All hands on deck approach to the 8 sanctions package. So this is the industry putting this out there under NGOs. Wilson, a senior campaigner at Global Witness, says the EU must put sanctions and all the impoverished people in the EU. My heart's broken for the people of Ukraine, but that's Zelensky's fault, right? He should have surrendered. There was no way he could beat him. If it wasn't for NATO supplying him, he wouldn't exist. If Russia wanted to assassinate him, he'd be dead. He's part of the game, right? The reasons that Putin is brandishing nuclear weapons, because NATO is providing all kinds of armory, fighter jets, anti-aircraft ballistic missile systems. The United States just sent down an anti-aircraft missile system. It's the same thing as United States going there. Ukrainians can't use that unless the Americans teach it to them. It's not a shadow war, it's an agenda. Nuclear After Dark at the Nuclear Museum in Albuquerque. How many stories have we covered on this? Right there, this Nuclear Museum in Albuquerque has a huge budget, and he spent it all on the children in the schools to brainwash them before, and give them all Spider-Man backpacks and Hulk T-shirts and stuff like this. It's despicable. Anybody sends their kid to that should be arrested for child abuse. South Korea is selected to produce neutron-absorbing aluminum composite materials for spent nuclear fuel. Transport and storage containers. So they got this there's all kinds of metals involved in it, but basic idea is to stop the fuel in the dry cask and the storage from going into a nuclear meltdown, a chain reaction. Which is the same as Fukushima or Santa Susana or Mayak. I know people want to hear 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, but compared to Santa Susana, well, Chernobyl, don't get me wrong, that was brutal. And it really did show us, how a small reactor which is brand new, with a very small inventory, was able to contaminate and change the sex ratio, for instance, of all males and females in Europe. You can't do that without poisoning everybody and all the species permanently. That's the only way you can do something like that. And it's really interesting that we got a lot of studies about sex ratios from nuclear fallout. And some studies suggest that global weapons fallout changed the sex ratio of all humans on the planet, which means you change the sex ratio of all species on the planet. What I mean by that is more males than females, which is less population, right? And it should have stopped right then when that was suggested that this was what's happening. This is a biological chemical weapon. Doctors in the 50s described it as a biological weapon. And I don't disagree with them at all. Used nuclear fuel being kept in interim storage facilities. No, there's no interim storage facilities. They're kept basically on site of the disease factories that people call nuclear power plants. Spent fuel rods are first kept in storage pools of water. They boil off the water all day, and the majority of them are surrounded by farms. Now, because when we I had to reformat the whole system 3 times today, and I had to get the keys from the company, and you got to do it all by email because I don't have a ProTech account, right? And which costs hundreds of dollars each year to keep that account. And that's something new that they started up. And so the other way is the which worked out okay. I had to work from 8 a.m. this morning till midnight, a little after midnight, to make it work. But we got it. The last email was about 10 o'clock tonight, about 2 hours before I went live. But I couldn't get it to talk to YouTube. I done that by putting in a secondary server. I looked up the secondary server. Where's the headline for that story? Readers responded to Cumbria's bid as a nuclear leader, which is in the United Kingdom, right alongside a mixed oxide fuel meltdown at Windscale, formerly known as Windscale Sellafield. Huge cancer clusters around these places. This is a model. This is a fabled model. Cumbria could be in a position to lead the UK's new industrial revolution on nuclear, with new clean energy technology, which they call nuclear clean is some kind of twisted. UK government had already pledged Boris Johnson to fund the development of one kind of new nuclear developments at size. Well, so they're blowing fortunes, trillions of dollars in the last couple of years on new nuclear. Nothing on storage for the renewable renaissance, which is here. It's happening. Last year it was 291 gigawatts, 333 nuclear power plants where the renewable energies came online. 333 large, not small modular fabled reactors, but large ones, in renewable worth of energy. By 2026, between 2020 and 2026, They estimate it to be around 4,800. It's going to come in above that. But they estimated 4,800 gigawatts of renewable energy will be online. If they got storage for that, that's the end of nuclear, gas, oil, and coal. Nuclear is trying to hold itself up as an in-between, saying that there is no storage. And of course, storage, there's tons of ways to store energy that are cheap on top of that and reliable. Like water batteries, where you have two reservoirs, you fill them up with water, and extra energy, you pump water up to the top one. When you need it, it flows to the bottom one. They've been doing that for decades, for goodness sakes. And then pumped hydro, or pumped compressed air, dig mine shafts, compress air down there. Heating salt, which is unbelievably easy apparently. It's very plentiful. And you can store 500 watts, 500 degrees temperatures for up to 2 weeks before you have to start. 2 weeks is a long time to store energy of that kind of capacity. So they're throwing endless money at nuclear, but they refuse to acknowledge they're renewable. In fact, they come out and denigrate nuclear constantly. Free energy catchment area. So the governor said, let's see how many people are rejecting change their tune when they find themselves in a free energy catchment area. So if you agree to let this new disease factory open up in your community, you're going to get free energy. Do you know how many times we heard that nonsense, that lie? That they've actually done it some places, right? But 90% of the times it's a lie. Yeah, the price might be a bit lower, but it's not significant. But to say they're going to get free energy, that's so desperate. That's such a desperate thing to say. Nuclear fuel plant in South Carolina to run for 4 more decades. Everybody knows what that is, right? Westinghouse. It's already 50-something years old. It's already contaminated half that part of the county or the country. Last week, the Non-Regulatory Commission approved a new license would allow the disease factory production machine known as Westinghouse Nuclear to keep running for, instead, not for another 4 years or 14 years or 24 years, but 40 years. 40 extra years at this facility. It implies 1,000. We'll actually go down the rabbit hole with some of this. These problems include pollution of groundwater. They're claiming it never left the site. Every time they say that, it's a blatant lie to suggest that it can't mitigate off the site. It's ridiculous. No matter, if you look at any other commodity site, mineral, nickel, copper, ore, whatever, it'll show up hundreds and hundreds of miles away in increments over the lifespan, right? It shows up everywhere. Uranium built up in an air pollution control device. Uranium, which is airborne, obviously, and the air pollution control device is just a machine they put there to meet regulatory's licensing. It doesn't you can't physically. It's the air they're talking about that's leaving the building, so you can't be in the building. In other words, uranium buildup, uranium in a fuel facility enriched, in a fuel plant, build up in air pollution control. And nuclear material, and so I kind of went low on the bit rate. I'm assuming it's okay on your guys' end. I got to remember to deal with that tomorrow or Saturday and sort that out. And nuclear material leaking through the floor of the plant. The workers were putting lead sheets on the ground so they can stand on it. It was totally safe there. Nuclear, and so we covered these stories about the nuclear in the floor. You heard of sweeping it under the carpet? They sweep it down under the floorboards. I'm not kidding you. Nuclear fuel plant in South Carolina to run for 4 more decades. Again, despite the sound argument, the federal officials allowed the plant, which was built more than 50 years ago, to continue to be a disease factory until 2062. It's just, it doesn't even make sense. Why wouldn't you, like, if you're going to be evil, just go ahead and build a new evil place, but don't keep running this disease factory based on obsolete technology that's been bombarded and is fragile, and after 5 decades plus of abuse from, can you imagine how lax they were in their safeguards in the 50s and 60s? Can you really wrap your mind around? They took the nasty stuff down to the ocean, put it on containers and sent it out, and they threw it overboard. They've done it for decades. All the big nuclear countries done it for almost 3 decades. And then all of a sudden they realize you're killing the planet, and they decided to pretend that they're not going to do it no more. And they just installed pipes leading right into the ocean of all nuclear plants worldwide and just pumped it straight out to the ocean. Plant, and this is only one of a trio in America that still manufactures fuel for nuclear plants. A federal agency quoted a recent study, that only moderate environmental impact could be caused by the factory over the next 4 decades. Like, if you stop at the facility right now, over the next 4 decades, it's going to continue to pollute because it's been unmitigated for 5 decades. Stupid. To suggest, even for, like, these people obviously should be tarred and feathered and put in a slingshot and shot at the moon or something. Whoever created the study, they didn't link me to the study. And I apologize, I didn't try to find it. Over the last 4 decades, get a load of some of this stuff. Westinghouse has been ordered to pay small fines. Small fines. I gotta fix that now, do I? I got a shadow around me now. Hang on. Nobody said this was going to be easy. Nobody ever said this would be easy. Ignore the uneasy. So you got a 24,000 fine because the ash, just don't even try to wrap your mind around this. Let me finish it. The ash in the factory's incinerators exceeded its uranium limits. They got an incinerator at a fuel factory for nuclear fuel rods. They got an incinerator. You got any idea how incredibly evil that actually is? How ruthless that actually is? An incinerator at a disease factory. You can't destroy uranium in an incinerator, folks. The ashes in the factory were too radioactive, so they got a $24,000 fine. The fuel rods cost more than that each, sure. Their penalty is not a penalty. The fine is not a fine. It was probably the lowest fine they can give them, by the looks of it. Nuclear fuel plant got an incinerator. Can't believe I just said that. Nuclear fuel plants got incinerators. I'm not really surprised because all nuclear plants rather got incinerators. Some got 2 because That's the words you are not supposed to hear is incinerators, nuclear power plants, or incinerators and fuel fabrication facilities. This is madness. They're so out of control they got incinerators at these facilities. Fate restored and stupid. Exceeded its uranium limit because it has a limit. If it's below the limit, go ahead, poison everything. Just keep it below the limit each hour. Burn it 24 hours a day if you got to. I can't believe somebody actually checked. A $24,000 fine is not an incentive not to be evil to this. 2018, an acid solution burned a hole through the plant's floor. How toxic was the air, folks? Which allowed uranium to contaminate the surrounding soil. Oh, the company cleaned up the area. The homeless and the destitute, the victims of society might have cleaned it up. The company didn't. Environmentalists, which is anybody who questions evil. So the minute they label you as environmentalists, you might as well put a big X on your forehead. Highlighted, the Westinghouse hasn't done enough to ensure the dangerous material didn't seep into the groundwater surrounding the facility, the disease factory. You can't stop it, is right, the long and short of it. You can't stop these disease factories from hemorrhaging the emissions into the environment, and they use a lot of caustic chemicals. Like the venting around a fuel factory. I got a story coming up of one that took them 17 years to clean it up. There's only one of these facilities that's ever been so-called cleaned up. You can't clean it up because it's 50, 60. I mean, this building is admittedly decrepit and old. They're going to let it run for 90 years. Why is it so important to give them an extra 40 years? Why not another 5 years or 10 years? Why be that evil? Why be that? Why not spend the money and build a new disease factory that's not going to contaminate the environment as much as this old one is that was built in the late 40s? Construction started in 1945 or something. Or I'm sorry, 1965 or something. So the state officials have confidence that the plant wasn't an environmental threat. In the statement, the CEO and president of the Westinghouse, Patrick the Bastard, stated the plant played a crucial role in fueling the operating nuclear disease factories across America and globally, while assuring America's energy independence. No, you sentence them to a death sentence by polluting the country with radiation. Safety of the company's top priority as it continues to make nuclear fuel over the next 4 decades. Again, there's no incentive not to be evil, right? They don't have any incentive. There's no vigilante groups out there going to take them and tar and feather them like they deserve to be. There's no incentive not to be constantly. So all of my farm, we got a poll tonight. Let's talk about that for a minute. China doesn't use proper equipment. I'm not laughing at you, man. I'm laughing with you. Somebody asked, wasn't sure if China used proper equipment at their fuel facilities. None of them do worldwide. We only covered everything so many times now. What am I looking for? And so my whole C drive was exterminated. I backed up some of my equipment because it's a TriCaster, right? I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's the same stuff the big media use, the same suppliers. What am I looking for, folks? Farms. Okay, hang on. All the farms are gone for some reason. Oh, I'm going to have to reinstall over the next couple of days all that stuff. That sucks. I'm already ran into the ground from yesterday till today. Okay, let me give you a little taste of what I mean by farms. So we got a poll. We got a poll. I'm going to bring up, if I can get this to work. What have I got done now? I got to change that. That's bugging me. Hang on. I'm just loving having all these graphics working again. So much better. I got to set the speed on everything. There you go. That looks better. Should nuclear power plants surrounded by farms be closed? We got a resounding 94%. Now, we had huge numbers before I started, but we had a bad... Go back here. So what's interesting about this is, why is all the nuclear power plants worldwide surrounded by farms? Do you think this is an accident? All nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation into the environment. All of them. No exception. From the fuel pools, right? They're still splitting the atoms that normally would be for 1 million homes. And so the farms are meant to suck up the radiation and ship it out of the area, in particular to your supermarkets and your dinner tables and your children's schools and the universities. And it's designed to poison everybody. You'll never hear anybody talk about it on the right here. So those tall, skinny stacks, right? They're emitting radiation 24 hours a day. The fuel pools have no containment. They boil off about 120,000 liters of water each day. So really, you think it's an accident that all these places are surrounded by farms? They built them in the prime farmland that are active. Which is why we got a poll tonight. Somewhere. All right, I'm loving it. Should nuclear power plants surrounded by farms be closed immediately? And should there be an investigation of people with heart problems and liver problems and lung problems and respiratory problems within 500 miles of a plant? Alzheimer's, if you see significant increases in Alzheimer's and dementia and autism and diabetes and Down syndrome, schizophrenia, the list goes on and on. What else did I miss here? 70 jobs to be created at the $20 million nuclear manufacturing site. Nuclear manufacturing site. In Derby, United Kingdom. I'm not sure what that was all about. I'm not worried about it. Overview of U.S. nuclear weaponry and arms expenditures. Wants to try out its military technology in warfare so that the Pentagon can promote its armament. So obviously, what you're talking, like the Pentagon is not supposed to be trying to be selling your product to other countries. You see what's going on with that statement there? So the Pentagon can promote its weapons of mass destruction, its biological, chemical, to sell and promote to other countries and place new orders to replenish the depleted arsenal in the U.S. military. Because if you don't have a war, you still gotta replace all your arsenal because it has an expiry date. It's not. This industry shouldn't exist. You are not going to have a future with the military-industrial complex, which is UN, and the nuclear industry, which is promoted by UN through many, many, many subsidies. So talking about how the cash can influence politicians and countries. 750 U.S. military bases in existence globally, 1.4 million soldiers, rapists and sodomists and murderers. Other estimates suggest Americans have owned or maintained authority over 1,000 military installations abroad. Even the Pentagon might not even know its exact numbers. NATO is a military association controlled by America. So from 1940 to 1996, Washington spent $5.5 trillion on just nuclear, not everything else, but just nuclear. What a stupid invention nuclear is. Does not include $320 billion pertaining to the annual storage and removal cost of more than 50 years' worth of accumulated radioactive waste, and the $20 billion needed for dismantling of nuclear weapons systems and removal of surplus nuclear material. A study by the Brookings Institute calculated World War II years until 27. Government spent $7.2 trillion on nuclear weapons. It's a stunning amount of money. Now they're bankrupt, right? Washington's overall military expenditure in the same 6 decades was another $22.8 trillion. $22.8 trillion in military, $7 trillion on nuclear. And you wonder why you have nothing. Since the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, America produced over 70,000 nuclear weapons. At one point, they had 55,000 missile silos all across the country. I'm not even going to go into it. So EMA participated in a peri-nuclear power plant drill with a so-called theoretical active shooter at the nuclear power plant. You got any idea how stupid that actually is? Because the idea is to brainwash and throw money into the community. All the firemen and police department and ambulances. And the emergency response centers and all this other stuff. It's insane. Instead of taking all that money buying Geiger counters and going out into all the farmers' fields surrounding these disease factories and saying, hey, our terrorists are carrots and potatoes grown by nuclear power plants, are nuclear terrorists. Japan can help ease Europe's energy crisis by restarting more nuclear power plants. The International Energy Agency chief, which is used to work for the nuclear industry, right? Fate Bristol or whatever the hell his name was. We've covered him lots. He used to work for the nuclear industry. Now he's heading the International Energy Agency, which is supposed to be anything but nuclear, really. International Atomic Energy Agency, more plastic than fish by 2050. That's the cover story, obviously, for Fukushima. I'm just going to have to switch some of my hard drives around tomorrow and see if I can't get the hard drives back to where they're supposed to be, because if so much is missing that right, because the settings, I can actually take the settings from this, go to another system, put the settings in it with the same hard drives, and get the same. I don't have to redo everything, which is weeks and weeks and weeks of work. And everything is missing, so I can't just show you what I'm supposed to show you tonight. So I don't really care tonight because I'm just happy I'm back up and running. I think the boat got a fuel problem now. Because now it ran fine. I put it in the water, it ran fine. And I was about to push it over. I got video, I didn't import it. I was about to push it over. Maybe I did. I should have it right there, actually. Wait till I get there. Click, click. Click, click. Yeah, I think I got no idea. Let's play it anyway, see how it plays out. It's the 28th of September. Yesterday. 2022. Oh, yeah, I screwed up. It was raining yesterday, right? I don't care. I screwed that up. Well, she wouldn't idle. I must have screwed up when I installed it yesterday. I didn't, though. I checked. She wouldn't idle. Home. Oh, well, back to the drawing board. I screwed something up yesterday. I don't think I did. We'll get it fixed. You'll get it. A little disappointing, to say the least. It's a miserable day to try, but we got to try, right? Yeah, brutal day yesterday. Sucks. Yesterday was a brutal day, man. And then I come in and went to do updates when it didn't have enough room, right, on the set, on the hard drive. And so I wanted to roll back the update because it was going to update me to the new operating system for 2022. And then it just it shut down, and when I started it back up, the operating system was missing for the production, but the Windows operating system was still there. And so the last time that happened to me, we had to ship it back to the factory. And that took almost 3 weeks to get it back, right? It was madness. I think tomorrow I'm gonna have to take tomorrow off, right? Because I'm burnt out. That was a brutal day yesterday, last night, and a brutal day today. And then we're finally streaming tonight, so I'm gonna have to do some test streams. I can probably make them private so it doesn't bother anybody. Nuclear technology has emerged as one innovative solution to the growing problem. So here's the International Atomic Energy Agency, who's responsible for the fish die-offs worldwide from Fukushima and other nuclear releases, trying to play the hero when they're only just heroes. Germany plans to put 2 nuclear plants in standby. Germany also says that that's all they're going to do, right? They're not going to be running them. U.S. Europe prepares new sanctions on Russia, so huge inflation coming your way. Department of Energy has a nuclear commando task force in the 80s. And so they wanted billions of dollars extra, so they dreamed up that terrorists were going to come and attack their nuclear plants. You don't need billions of dollars security for coal, gas, and oil. What they've done is they demonized all the competitors to the point now where you can't tell a different lie, right? You got to keep the same lie alive. And everybody's dysfunctional now. But nuclear is global warming. Nuclear is climate change. And they knew this. This is why they came up with it. And who promotes it but the military-industrial complex disguised as United Nations. Hurricane Ian, and my heart goes out to everybody down there. That was horrific. I just seen little bits of it tonight when I was taking a break. I never even realized it was happening because I did a few days ago, but then because of yesterday and all day last night, and today and all day tonight, or all night, I accidentally seen it there, and I searched it. What were the winds blowing at? They were sustained at 155 miles per hour, and there's these huge sailors blowing up on top of each other. I've never seen nothing like it. Just to blow one of these up high and dry like that is not the storm surge. These are wind impacts. I got video on my other computer from last year of people on the same boats, and it was blowing 185 miles per hour according to the Coast Guard. They said if they hadn't known that it was going to blow like that, there's zero possibility it would have stayed on the boat. Changes in the world weather patterns is caused by radioactive fallout. This model is based on 20 days of radioactive fallout. Can you imagine that, first off, if that was snow and the snow never melts, then you would get it, right? But it's invisible and you can't see it or smell it or hear it or taste it or feel it or pick it up or throw rocks at it. And it's pulsing energy at the speed of light every second from upper troposphere to the bottom of the ocean floor. Through all your forests and your homes and your communities. And so it's and on top of that, it's lethal to everything with replicating cells. So it's an invisible death plume is the best way to describe it, that also pulses energy every second. So it kills all the bacteria and fungus in the forest too, right? So the forests don't handle the ecosystem anymore. The system is heated up because it's no longer functioning. And what I mean, there's a lot of things about that. See, an ecosystem is all these bacteria and funguses and all this biota that breaks down the foliage and the leaves and debris and everything in nature. If that disappears, then it doesn't break down. So when you have forest fires, they're much more intense. And not only that, you're going to liberate the radiation back into the environment that's sequestered in that environment because you can't destroy it. Water security in the changing world held today alongside the IAEA Annual General Conference. An event was organized jointly by the IAEA United Nations. They're the same. IAEA is United Nations. It's a subsidy of them. You can't, and they do it constantly, right? And they've infiltrated every facet of our lives worldwide, and they have all the attributes of a bona fide plague at this stage. And that's what they are. They have no sovereignty over anybody's country. And they've disrupted everybody's country with buying off politicians and putting useful idiots in key positions. And now they have captured the majority of the planet, and it's 100% sedition for each country they're doing it in, too. We're experiencing worldwide change distribution of water caused by climate change. This is a good point, but it's caused by the industry, the nuclear industry. TDEC reportedly plans to clean up former nuclear site. Tennessee Department of Environmental Conservation cleaning up the former site of the American Nuclear Corporation of South Clinton. You know this story? They're a regulatory agency with the Federal Environment Protection Agency, which is absurd. And then the EPA, who promotes nuclear, is going to do the sampling across this radioactive site. They got funding for $22 million, which is ain't going to clean up jack shit. He said, oh, it's more than we could have hoped for. No, it should be all cleaned up. U.S. Nuclear Corporation, founded in 1946 as a spin-off from the Manhattan Project. They're not neighbors anybody but wants, and this is what they're up to, all kinds of stuff since 1946. When significant and unacceptable levels of radioactivity were detected in water samples collected from a nearby river during quarterly water sampling by the Oak Ridge National Laboratory in 1969. Can you imagine how radioactive it is now? During its brief existence, the company was repeatedly cited, they've been here for 100 years almost, has been repeatedly cited for not complying with state federal regulations concerning the handling of radioactive material. Some cleanups began in 1974, and then the state of Tennessee took control of the site in the 1980s. So 32 years later, they're going to try to clean it up with $22 lousy million. Which leads to another story from last week. First demolition of a reactor facility at Oak Ridge National Laboratory is underway, which is 2,200 square kilometer nuclear wasteland, set for completion this year. For the first time in Oak Ridge history, environmental management crews are demolishing a former reactor facility, reaching another important milestone for cleanup at the site. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, 35,000 acres, 140 square kilometers. My apologies. 10,000 acres is the campus. Is 40 square kilometer campus of nuclear demons. 35,000. The other one I was talking about will come up in a bit here, because there's two. I got two stories there. This is one of them, and I mixed up. Doesn't mean it didn't contaminate 2,200 square miles. Is the own 140 square miles. You can guarantee they contaminated 2,200 square kilometers. Turned down the bulk shielding reactor at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. This is an old building. 3010 is the building number. It is the first removal of a former, this is a reactor rather, at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. It's been sitting there for decades. It was built in the 1950s radiation shielding studies as part of a federal aircraft nuclear propulsion program, of all things. It had a 27-foot deep reactor pool filled with water to shield the radioactive components contained in the pool. Its mission changed to general purpose research reactor in 63 and shut down in 91. Sitting there for 30 years. A great deal of prep work was necessary to ensure the facility could be safely demolished. Crews have been working diligently for the past few years. I wonder what a few years is. To eliminate hazards and ensure successful demolition of the nuclear facility. The first one, really, the past few years. Reportedly, one of the most important pre-demolition activities is removing, disposing of irradiated components from the reactor pool. Once these components were removed, there was 130,000 gallons of radioactive water left. It was sent to an on-site treatment facility. I don't like the sound of that at all. Not even a little bit. On-site, like incinerators. The pool was decontaminated. You can't decontaminate the pool. And filled with a concrete mixture. Well, if it was decontaminated, you didn't need to fill it with a cement mixture, did you? You know what I mean? And filling it with cement is stupid. The industry is not supposed to exist, folks. In addition to stabilizing the reactor pool, they removed various wastes as well as asbestos. The reactor is one of the more than a dozen research reactors constructed at Oak Ridge Nuclear Wasteland over multiple decades and abandoned. UCOR is proud to be part of another significant cleanup milestone at Oak Ridge Reservation. It's Kent Reuter, UCOR President CEO, from completing the first ever cleanup of a gaseous diffusion plant. They just finished the job of a gaseous diffusion, which is this one right here, which is Oak Ridge. It's the first time in history it's ever done it, which is a very convoluted story. First ever cleanup of a disease factory, then providing land for continual federal missions and economic development. So opening the land and from a nuclear wasteland back up to the public. Again, this industry would gladly bury it on the land and open it up too. There's zero possibility it's cleaned up. You can't clean up these disease factories because you're talking about decades and decades during the Cold War and during the original nuclear renaissance of I shouldn't call it a renaissance, I suppose. Crews will complete demolition of the facility this year for transitioning the tear down of the nearby low-intensity test reactor known as Building 3005. A decades, it's probably 3 or 4 decade long effort it's 3 decades, right, since 91. Transform the former Oak Ridge gaseous diffusion plant has been completed, marking the first ever removal of uranium enrichment complex. This you can see all the missing infrastructure. They had 4,350 horsepower motors running all the time. Try wrapping your mind around it. They had 1,000 that were at 750 horsepower running too. Imagine how much energy this facility was actually using. Multi-use industrial park. So yeah, they had thousands and thousands of large horsepower electric motors there. Industry's clever. Serious problem that arose from the Manhattan Project rush to make nuclear weapons. The real fallout was workers and communities poisoned by the fluoride from the stacks. Kellex was a subsidiary of the Kellogg Construction Company. Which later became a part of Dallas Halliburton. You remember Halliburton down in Dallas? Remember their legacy? In Iraq and Afghanistan, for instance, and BP oil. And it was Halliburton who caused the well to explode for BP oil in the Gulf of Mexico, right? It was Halliburton that was involved in, if I remember correctly, in rebuilding the Pentagon where the accountants were on September 11th, where they didn't find no wings or engines or suitcases or, passengers or plane seats or nothing. An entire edition of a newspaper reported this incident was confiscated. The release action was so bad it frosted the window glass on cars and buildings for miles around the plant, and they evacuated half the city. It frosted the glasses, and it was so toxic it actually ate the glass. And the people demanded that the nuke plant pay for the glass windows in their cars. And the nuke plant said, sure. We're all over it. Rather than say you should evacuate now because we just contaminated your community permanently. It frosted the glass on cars and buildings for miles. That's the beauty of evil. You can't actually keep up with it. Decades-long cleanup completed at gaseous diffusion plant. Uh, 1.2 million cubic meters of nuclear waste. And 30,000 other truckloads of soil. 1.2 million times 20. So 1.2 million tons of nuclear waste. If you put a ton in the back of each pickup truck, that's 24,000 feet divided by 5,000 feet per mile is 4,800 kilometers. So that's 1-ton trucks of nuclear waste bumper to bumper almost across America. Bumper to bumper, a single row. From a single facility. So how much didn't they find, right? Evil has a name, it's called nuclear. So the nuclear industry, UK Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, the non-decommissioned authority, has teamed up with oil and gas decommissioning because they want to recycle as much nuclear as they can, and right, so they want to team up with the oil and gas, who's allowed to recycle. The nuclear industry should never be allowed to recycle. It's around 900 million or 900,000 tons of nuclear waste will come off a nuclear site when they're trying to decommission it. Not counting fuel and water and everything else, right? But the United Kingdom Nuclear Decommissioning Authority is not a decommissioning authority at all. They haven't decommissioned anything. Donaray, the fuel reprocessing for disease factory in Scotland, which is owned by UK's government, they expect it'll take them 315 years to clean it up. But who's going to be around in 315 years to find out if that really the way it played out? Microsoft says they're going to use nuclear and call it clean energy credits. So nuclear's gained a foothold now in clean air credit. If one nuclear gets away with it, they're all going to do it. There's all the scumbags right there, real proud of themselves. German minister rejects nuclear plant extension beyond winter. I love headlines like that, by the way. Oh, I'm busted up. I couldn't care less for streaming. We get back up and running. I'll get the kinks out of it over the weekend. So I'm not looking forward to it or anything, but we'll get it. We'll get it done. Two Russian subs made a trans-Arctic under the ice transfer from the Barents to the Pacific. These are nuke subs carrying nuclear weapons. Such a waste of money and precious metal resources and people, right? You can't use the nuclear weapons on board. It's not a deterrent when you can't use it. You realize that in the industry, don't you? 5,500 nautical miles, which is a huge distance. Good for them. They got the best job in the world. They're going to do nothing. They suck up all the resources. And they got a pointless job. And if they do use it, they can't cash their checks. And, like, is anybody really stupid enough to do that, I wonder? I shouldn't answer that question. We're talking about the nuclear industry, Dana. Nuclear energy monitorization ongoing at Idaho National Laboratories. In an effort to step away from carbon-producing energy, Idaho National Laboratory is promoting degenerate nuclear power. An Idaho National Laboratory is 2,300 square kilometers, not Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge is contaminated 2,200 kilometers, but Idaho's campus is 890 square miles. That's absurd, by the way. So again, the sodium-cooled system, which was Santa Susana, which is equal to 463-mile islands melting down at the same time worth of radiation released into the environment and counting. But they had multiple meltdowns there before, right? And they tested some Rocketdyne was there. They had developed rockets, and they went through like 12,000 rockets at the site. They had major burn pits all over that site on top of that. Down by Los Angeles, it contaminated half the coast of that. Currently, the high-flux fast neutron testing capabilities only exist in stupid land known as Russia. Just frightens me because all their sodium reactors in history have melted down. And the Fermi plant melted down on the Great Lakes, the Rico Fermi plant. Officials finish buried nuclear waste cleanup at Idaho site. This is on top of one of the biggest aquifers down there too. Decades in unlined pits, nuclear waste in unlined pits at a nuclear disease factory sits atop of a giant aquifer in eastern Idaho. The manager down there says, if you look at any study on the safety aspects of energy, nuclear is the most safest of energy. It's safer than birds and bees and flowers. Sarcasm, folks. Don't chop that up and use it to beat me up. And removing radioactive and hazardous waste buried for decades in unlined pits. They're totally safe, Dana. Unlined pits on top of the giant aquifer in eastern Idaho that supplies cities and farms. It's surrounded by farms on top of that. And the people that promote this could get a job doing anything, make a fortune, but they chose to poison all the species and all of humanity because they disrespect you so much. Unlined trenches, pits. It sits atop a giant aquifer. That's not a recipe for disaster at all. U.S. Department of Energy on Wednesday held a celebration to mark the completion of removing specifically targeted buried waste from 97-acre landfill at its 890 square mile nuclear wasteland at the Idaho National Laboratories. The targeted radioactive waste contained plutonium-contaminated filters. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. And some radioactive and hazardous waste remains, because if you dig it up, everybody dies. So they're just going to put a whole bunch of dirt on top of it and pretend it's not there. Earthen cover. It's equivalent to saying, shut up. Do whatever we want. We're demons. The United States awarded $3.9 million to establish sustained dialogue on the peaceful use of nuclear science technology. It drives me crazy to throw all this money, and there's all these foundations out there, and they don't support people like me, right? And so how you gotta have an opposition. You can't. If there's no incentive not to be evil, then evil rules. And right now, evil rules. And at some point, we're going to have to deal with it. At some point, we're going to have to face it, and we better get busy. You better get busy. Artist promotes Kazakhstan's anti-nuclear efforts. And Kazakhstan has huge amount of disability going on because of the brutal Soviet Union nuclear testing. The people, we've covered a lot of stories. There's a lot of disfigured children and adults from this nuclear waste. They got some anti-nuclear pictures. Not so much. This one for sure. And that one for sure. Bringing more women in nuclear, human resources strategies for gender equality in a nuclear organization. And we've seen this a lot lately. The Nuclear Waste Management Organization just handed out awards at their women in nuclear bonanza, where they spent probably a couple of $100,000 to pat each other demons on the back and pretend that they're human. Yeah, there's really something. It's sad, really. Oh, yeah. IAEA event highlights agency school. This is the scary part about this. This is not part of Canada. It's not part of the United States. It's not part of anybody. It's a company. And they are openly accepted in all schools and primary schools and high schools and middle schools worldwide. And just walk right in and tell the kids that if they eat the radioactive waste, they can all be Spider-Man and Superman in just a few days. The word safety in nuclear, there should be a crime to put those two words in the same sentence. There's never been any safety. We've seen no examples of it in the nuclear industry in history. Again, you see the stock market seeking alpha. Uranium producers, they promote shitty stocks in uranium for 11 years straight, pumping it, robbing the unwary investors. It's an incredible Ponzi scheme what they've done. I can't just let it go. I have to come out and say this is wrong. You know, it's not much. It might stop one investor each time I do it. That's a win for me. It's a win for this planet too. German minister rejected Scumbag nuclear. Way to go. Lies, lies, and more lies. So you got what happened, right? So Germany likely to extend it, but Germany said they're not. That don't stop Alpha from promoting uranium, see? Despite the fact that Germany said they're not going to do it the same day on top of that. Push strip nuclear power ban after subs. This is Australia. They said they wanted to build 70 or 80 reactors in Australia. Get rid of the ban. It's going to take, like, how long do you think it'll take them to build? If they say they got the money to do it, right? How long will it take them to build it? Forever, right? They don't have the manpower anywhere on the planet to handle 70 or 80 new reactors. It takes about 4 years to train a nuke plant employee on top of that. And they got the best spot on the planet for solar and wind, and geothermal and tidal energy, you name it, and storage. They got the best spot on the entire planet. Whole continent to themselves, basically. Yeah, it's a nuclear wasteland because Britain went down there and waited for the winds to blow across Australia before they set off their nuclear bombs. But they got the area. But every time we cover the Australia nuclear industry, it's really hard to describe how sinister they are. It's consistent too, right across the board. All the media and universities, when they come out and talk about nuclear, they're extremely sinister, and it's easy to challenge their lies because they're so blatant lies, right? They're not even creative. China is going to run. So instead of pumping the hot water back into the ocean, they're going to use it to heat houses. I'll give them a C for trying. The problem is nuclear is a disease factory. And they're usually surrounded by farms, which is why we got a poll tonight, I might add. Should nuke plants surrounded by farmers be closed? And obviously they should be closed, and so should the farms. You can't get the radiation out of that soil. France is going to begin work on their new nuke fleet in 2027. Like, they got reactors that are 14 years behind schedule already and 4 times over budget. And they don't have the resources, they don't have the welders, they don't have the pipe fitters, they don't have the insulators, they don't have the engineers. You're talking about it'd have to be a nationwide, everybody would have to participate in it to have that kind of renaissance. The amount of material for a single plant, the cement is enough to build a sidewalk from United Kingdom to Rome, for instance. Just cement. Everything has to be triple inspected for a nuclear plant. Why did they wait until their reactors were all broken down? Why not come out with something that can solve it right away? Why do nuclear? Why is nuclear so important? Why is evil so important? Why is it so important to be that evil? Why not come up with solutions? Why throw your money away? A degenerate nuclear industry. Well, at least the video is here for everybody to watch later. I work like a freaking dog the entire day. And yesterday trying to get this back up and running again. I'm pretty proud of myself because I'm pretty sure I should have given up about 24 times, but I'll get it. I reformatted the whole system today multiple times. It's so disappointing just the first time. And we're 2 hours late and we still managed to get a stream in. And we'll leave it on that headline there. Nuclear attack in Ukraine should spark devastating NATO response. NATO is not supposed to exist. They were created because of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union was dissolved, NATO should have been dissolved too. And NATO, which is controlled apparently by America, has proven that they're dangerous. They're just as bad as Russia. Russia's got 30 countries feeding weapons to Ukraine. If you this plume model is only 20 days, so it doesn't tell the story. But it gives you an idea, because coal, oil, and gas emissions don't do that. The only thing that does that is nuclear, and it does it for millions of years. If you're in a government or you're a think tank or something like that, and you say no to nuclear, you have the moral high ground. You are doing the moral and ethical thing. You are doing the world a favor and the species and humanity and the future of humanity a favor by saying no to nuclear. This invisible plume covers the entire planet shortly after. It's pulsing energy every second. Pure energy. Gas, oil, and coal emissions don't have those attributes. And so I don't know if I kind of like the white out from the light's too bright. I got to add some kind of color to me. Let me see what we got here. Brightness, contrast, saturation. You know, if I touch any of that, I might never get it fixed. I'll be the purple people eater before the show is over here. I don't care. We got a show in tonight. I'm super happy about it. I don't like giving the nuclear industry a day off, see? Got a massive 23 likes. Last year I had 24,000 subscribers and they took down my site. So when the video was over, I would have at least 300 views and you would have 100 likes for sure, minimum. And that if anything broke down, you can raise the money the next day. It was no big deal. Now every day is a living nightmare, an absolute nightmare, but the work still got to get done. It might never get back to what it was, but the work still got to get done. I don't have a right to take a day off, and that's why I'm here this hour tonight. Is I take my obligations serious, and I'm obligated to come out and challenge the nuclear industry until everybody else decides that they need to do that too, because their lies are blatant. And it's in every single story, every single day, without fail, full of blatant lies to the point where it's ridiculous. But there's no one to challenge the lies. And the media is the liar, obviously. And after doing this for years and years and years and years publicly, how can anybody deny these facts? How is that possible? And then all the research expeditions we've done for years and years and years back and forth to Alaska were wiped out when they took down my site while I was out looking for spiders. The crime of the century, looking for spiders. So let's close the poll down. Let's look at it. It was a great poll. I appreciate everybody. I know most people will watch this later and they gave up because I didn't show up. And I told people I wasn't going to stream tonight, so. But anyway, the video will be here for those that want to come back and check later. It's a great poll. 90% of the people said 90% of the people said that nuclear plants that are surrounded by farms should be closed. I should have put there and farms too, but I didn't. Which means 99.9% of all the farms should close down because that's how much of it is surrounded by farms. 99% of nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms. That's poisoning you worldwide. And there's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide hemorrhaging into the environment. The amount is catastrophic to all species. We have to stop that. We have to accomplish that. The world has to change. It has to change now. Nuclear is climate change. It's been going on for 80 years of missions. It's time to end this horrific betrayal known as nuclear power. Good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. I'll read your comments later. I'm not going to try to shout out. And I'm not asking people to pity me because I worked like a dog all day yesterday and today. And all the disappointment yesterday having the boat break down on me again was just unbelievable. Didn't having this system breakdown was unbelievable. I just wanted to say that despite this enormous down time, I still never stopped. I can't handle the industry getting a day off, a day where they're not called to task. It's just inconceivable for me that there should be, lots of people doing it. There's not, so we're obligated. It's our obligation. Under the Bill of Rights, the Magna Cartas, the Constitutions, and just being a human on this planet, we have to represent the species. They can't represent themselves or us. We have to stand up for them or they will disappear. And we have no options. They are disappearing because of the industry, but we have to stand up. It's time to stand up. It's not a crime. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. We'll see everybody on Sunday. I'll have most of the kinks out of this hopefully by then. It'll be up to higher resolution, 60 frames a second by then. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on Sunday. If you can donate, there's links in the very bottom of the description. We're desperate to raise some money. And we'll see everybody Sunday. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night and great weekend. And appreciate those that have the faith and kept checking and then found the stream. It means a lot. Take care, folks. Yeah, good night, folks. We'll see everybody on Sunday. Take care.